All right, burgeoning viewers, one quick note for you. A subscriber a day in October. If we hit 31 subscribers in 31 days, one lucky subscriber will walk away with the entire Modern Horizons art card series. Additionally, a comment a day. Any subscriber that leaves a comment in every video posted by MTG Burgeoning during the month of October will become eligible for the November Pack Wars. On November 1st, a list of all subscribers that left a comment on every MTG Burgeoning video during the month of October will be compiled, and from this list, one subscriber will be randomly chosen to participate in the November Pack Wars. So hope for peace, but prepare for war. What's up, MTG Burgeoning community and YouTube viewers? If you are part of the latter and wish to join the former, click that subscribe button right now. In today's video, we are already on deck tech number 18 of our kitchen table series. And in today's deck, we are going to break down a Juned Counters deck. Welcome back. This is MTG Burgeoning here. It is Friday, so that can only mean one thing, kitchen table series. And we are on deck tech number 18. We are just blowing right through the deck catalog, folks. And if you missed any of our previous installments of this series, you can click on any of the wonderful links below and it'll take you right to any of those previous deck techs. So in today's video, we are going to break down a Juned Counters deck. And if everything works on curve, it is a doozy to play. It is pretty fun. So let's get right down to it. And we start as we usually do with our land base. 6 swamps. That puts the black in Juned, baby. And after those 6 swamps, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 forests. 6 swamps, 8 forests. No mountains. We supplement that with a playset of Dragonskull Summit. It's the Rakdos check land. Comes into play untapped if we control a swamp or a mountain. 4 copies, Dragonskull Summit. So I think you can probably guess the next playset of cards, and that's going to be the Rootbound Crag. This is our Gruul check land. Comes into play untapped if we control a forest or a plains. 4 copies of that. That is the land base, and because we are playing at the kitchen table, here comes our Soul Ring, as is customary with nearly every kitchen table series deck. Because we're running 3 colors, and we're not running any fetches, and we're not running any shocks, we are going to include a Chromatic Lantern. It's a pretty valuable color fixing card. It itself taps for 1 mana of any color, and any of our lands can tap for 1 mana of any color too. So that is our land and mana rock base. That's it. That's our mana all right there. Those are our lands, and those are our artifacts. Let's move to the only removal we have in the deck, and that's a good spell, Terminate. I love that it says destroy target creature. It doesn't say destroy target non-black creature or non-artifact creature or non-legendary creature or any other kind of non-creature. Terminate picks a creature, destroys it, and it can't be regenerated. 4 copies of Terminate. All right, now we're going to move to the only 1-drop in this deck, and this is the card that we want to make sure that we can play on turn 1 in order to perfectly curve the rest of the deck. And if we're running +1/+1 counters, and we have green, and we're looking for a 1-drop, well, it's got to be Hardened Scales. For just a green, if 1 or more +1/+1 counters will be placed on a creature we control, that many +1/+1 counters are placed on it instead. So each time there's a +1/+1 counter going on a creature, it's getting an extra one. 4 copies of Hardened Scales. Now, in order to speed up the +1/+1 process, the +1/+1 counter process, we're going to include a spell that can potentially help our opponents, but it should end up helping us more. And that's going to be a playset of Evolutionary Escalation. All right, 1 in the green. At the beginning of our upkeep, we put 3+1/+1 counters on target creature we control, and 3+1/+1 counters on target creature an opponent controls. So if an opponent has any creatures, we pick one of them to put +1/+1 counters on, which we could then potentially terminate. And if they don't have any +1/+1, or if they don't have any creatures to put +1/+1 counters on, well, that's a shame. We put +1/+1 counters on our creature. 4 copies. Evolutionary Escalation. All right, so now let's transition into our creatures. And here we're going to start with a place. Is it a place set? Yeah, a place set of Scavenging Ooze. 1 in a green, 2/2 ooze creature. Tap a green, exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a creature card, we put a +1/+1 counter on Scavenging Ooze and we gain 1 life. So if there are creatures in the graveyard, we tap a green, exile it, gain a life. This gets a +1/+1 counter. If we have a Hardened Scales in play, it's going to get an additional +1/+1 counter. 4 copies, Scavenging Ooze, the first creatures of our deck. Next play set of creatures, as we're continuing with our curve, 1 into 2, and now we're getting into our 3-drop. We have Mana Gorger Hydra. 2 in a green, it's a Hydra with Trample. It's only 1/1. But whenever a player casts a spell, we put a +1/+1 counter on Mana Gorger Hydra. Any player, not an opponent, not us, any player casts a spell, this gets a +1/+1 counter. Hardened Scales gets an additional +1/+1 counter. 2 Hardened Scales, 2 +1/+1 counters. 4 copies, Mana Gorger Hydra. Staying on theme with our +1/+1 counter focus, we move to a 4-drop in Corpsejack Menace. 2, a black and a green. This beauty from Return to Ravnica is a 4/4 fungus, and if 1 or more +1/+1 counters would be placed on a creature we control, twice that many +1/+1 counters are placed on it instead. So this is pretty much a half of a doubling season on a 4/4 fungus body. 4 copies, Corpsejack Menace. Imagine having these 2 in play. A Mana Gorger Hydra and a Corpsejack Menace with a table full of opponents. Oh, baby. All right, next up, staying with our 4-drop, we move to Exava, Rakdos Blood Witch. For 2, a black and a red, this beauty is a 3/3 legendary human cleric. First strike and haste with the Unleash mechanic. And unleashes, we may have this creature enter the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. It can't block as long as it has a +1/+1 counter on it, which is fine. We're not playing a 3/3 first strike haste with the potential to be a 4/4 for it to be a blocker. And if there's any number of Hardened Scales, well, those +1/+1 counters are going to be more than just 1. At the very bottom, though, is the most intriguing and integral part of this entire deck, and it says each other creature we control with a +1/+1 counter on it has haste. We're going to see why that's so important as we continue to move down our curve. 4 copies of Exava, Rakdos Blood Witch. All right, and now with the foreshadowing complete, we move to our 5-drop and what is going to be the nice ending combo with Exava, the Rakdos Blood Witch, and that's going to be the Colonian Hydra. 3 in double green, it's a Hydra with Trample, and it enters the battlefield with 4 +1/+1 counters. So let's just move that away for a moment. So if we've got a Hardened Scales, it enters with 5. If we only have a Corpsejack Menace, it enters with 8. If we have a combination of the 2, well, you know where the math is going here. So Colonian Hydra says, whenever it attacks, double the number of +1/+1 counters on each creature we control. So every creature we control, their +1/+1 counters are going to double whenever Colonian Hydra attacks. 1 playset of Colonian Hydra. So if we're following exactly where the curve is, if we curve out completely and we hit turn 4 Exava, or maybe turn 3 if we have our mana rocks, and then we hit the Colonian Hydra comes down with +1/+1 counters. It has haste because of Exava. It can attack. Exava can attack. The Managorger Hydra can attack. The Scavenging Ooze might have +1/+1 counters on it. All of those counters are going to double. If there's a Corpse Jack Menace in play, it's going to double again. If the Evolutionary Escalation is in play, and then now we're just getting out of control with the number of +1/+1 counters we can throw around. All right, and lastly, that is the top of our curve, potentially, because the last playset of creatures we've included, well, there's some versatility as to when we can cast them. One playset of Primordial Hydra. For X and double green, it enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters. At the beginning of our upkeep, double the number of +1/+1 counters on Primordial Hydra. And Primordial Hydra has trample as long as it has 10 or more +1/+1 counters. So with Exava in play, with Colonian Hydra in play, and then shortly chasing it up with a Primordial Hydra, or any combination of what we have here, that is going to spell imminent +1/+1 trampling doom for our opponents. MTG Burgeoning fans, that is Kitchen Table Deck Tech number 18. That is Juned Counters. Let's take this for a quick playtesting spin. All right, so let's give this Juned Counter deck a playtest and see if we can hit on curve for some dramatic combat shenanigans. Okay, let's see what we got here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We got, okay, good start. Primordial Hydra. All right, come on, that's what we're looking for. Evolutionary Escalation. Scavenging Ooze, and, we missed our Forest. We could have had a great one. Turn 1, Hardened Scales. Turn 2, Scavenging Ooze. Turn 3, Primordial Hydra. All right, we'll keep it anyways, because maybe we just draw what we need anyways. All right, so let's get our turn counter here, because we're only going, we want by turn 5, we want to be closing this baby out. All right, here we go. Turn 1, we draw, terminate. All right, that will be helpful. So let's get our Rootbound Crag. Now see, if that were a stomping ground, we're not having this conversation, folks. All right, turn 2. We draw. Can't even cast that one yet, but that's all right. All right, so we're going to tap 2. We're going to get our Hardened Scales in play immediately. Turn 3, we're going to draw. There's our Forest. That's what we're looking for. All right, now options are available. So early game, let's get out a Primordial Hydra and try to tease some of the removal out of our opponent's hands. We put it X as 1, but because of Hardened Scales, we'll put an additional +1/+1 counter on that bad boy. All right, not too shabby so far. Turn 4, let's draw one of our big uns. Oh, just like that. Now we need Exava to come to the party. Dragon Skull Summits. All right, now I think we're going to start to push the envelope here. So let's tap out. Let's tap for 4. We'll be a little aggressive. We'll throw a Scavenging Ooze in play. Oozo for 2-zo. And we'll throw an Evil. Oh, and I forgot to double the counters at the beginning of our turn. 4 into 5. And we'll throw an Evolutionary Escalation into play too. All right, not too bad. Looking pretty good. So we untap. We move to turn 5. Those counters are going to double they're going to double to 10, and then another one that's going to give us 11. So we'll just keep the 5, and we will add 6. Actually, let's do this a different way. Let's stack our triggers by putting 3 +1/+1 counters on one of our opponent's creatures. Not really worried about that. And should we make it huge? Yeah, let's push the envelope. So we'll put 3 +1/+1 counters from Evolutionary Escalation, which will be 1 more, which will go to 4. And then we'll double these counters, so 9, which will go to 18, but another one, because of the Hardened Scales, we'll put 19 +1/+1 counters on this bad boy. That's going to be 6 and 6. And we're attacking with a 19/19 Trampler on turn 5. Yeah, that's going to work out pretty well, folks. It is turn 5. We draw. We play a land. And we've got all kinds of things that we can do. We can play our Colonian Hydra. We can sit back and be defensive with a Terminate in hand. We can exile some cards with a Scavenging Ooze. We're definitely going to send that Primordial Hydra somewhere. All right, that was not a terrible first round of playtesting. Let's do one more. All right, MTG Burgeoning Community. Let's give this June to +1/+1 counter deck another go-around. That one, I would say historically, that would be just a moderate play test if we were going against a metagame with multiple opponents. Because there's going to be, I mean, that Primordial Hydra is not just going to sit out there looking all pretty without some kind of interaction. But we did have another one in our hands, and a Colonian Hydra. All right, come on, let's do the ultimate curve right into it. We can do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Lucky number 7. Oh, there's the force we needed last game. Okay, Dragon Skull Summit. All right, we got our lands. Mana Gorger Hydra. Terminate. Give us something smaller. Oh, Hardened Scales. There we go. All right. We keep. We move. We draw. Turn 1. There she is. There's our girl. And we are going to go... Ooh, I'm tempted to just play the Dragon Skull Summit. Nah, let's not be cute. Let's not be cute during a play testing. Let's throw a Hardened Scales out there right away. Let our opponents know what's up. All right, turn 2, Rootbound Crag. We play that without even thinking. And I think we passed the turn. Passed to turn 3. Beautiful. And now we drop down a Rootbound Crag. And now see, if we would have played that Dragon Skull Summit, we would have been able to curve into turn 4 Exava. Now we may not be able to do that if we can't draw a swamp. All right, so Mana Gorger Hydra's in play. And let's say conservatively, we have a couple of opponents and each play just one spell. Round of turns, and we'll put 4+1/+1 counters on there. Each spell is 1+1/+1 counter, and the Hardened Scales puts another one on there. So we move, we draw. Oh, look at that. Sometimes the gods of magic, they look down on you and they're just like, you need a swamp, just a basic swamp. You know, you're a good guy, Burgeoning. You do a lot of hard work for your channel. We're going to give you that swamp. So we're going to tap 4. We're going to cast Exava. We are going to unleash her, and we're going to put an additional +1/+1 counter on her because of the Hardened Scales, and 2 +1/+1 counters on the Mana Gorger Hydra because of the Hardened Scales and its own ability. And we will swing. We've got a 5/5 First Striker and a 7/7 Trampler. This is turn 4. We're sending that kind of damage. All right, and this is it. This is where it really starts to shine right here, what I was talking about before. There's turn 5. We draw our card. Oh, Corpse Jack Menace. Oh, one more turn. Nah, we're not going to mess with it, though. So we'll play that. We're going to tap our 5. We'll play our Primordial Hydra with 3 +1/+1 counters. That will go to 4 because of the Primordial Hydra. And then this will go to 2 more because of its own ability. And now our Primordial Hydra has haste. And we're just a Colonian Hydra away from closing out this entire game. We decide to swing everything. That's our turn 5. And let's just see, for the purposes of amusement, if turn 6 would yield a Colonian Hydra. Does it? Does it? And, oh, there it is. Turn 6 Colonian Hydra. All right, let's just play it out, because now it's just an embarrassment of riches here with this deck. All right, so we're going to do it. We're going to tap our 6. Watch this, folks. This is what we were trying to do. This is a little bit behind curve, but this is what we wanted all along. Oh, and we forgot to double this to 9. All right, so watch what happens here. So we cast our Colonian Hydra. We're going to put 2 +1/+1 counters on the Mana Gorger Hydra. The Colonian Hydra comes into play with 4 +1/+1 counters, but it comes in with 1 more because of the Hardened Scales. And because of Exava's ability of giving all creatures that we control haste that have +1/+1 counters on it, we immediately move to combat. we declare all 4 creatures as attackers. Colonian Hydra is going to attack, and when it does, its attack trigger will trigger. Get it? You know, from the redundancy department of redundancy. So what's going to end up happening is all of the counters are going to double on each creature +1 because of the hardened scales. So if we start with the Colonian Hydra, that doubles to 10, and then it gets another one for an 11/11 trampler. So that's a little bit of the shaboom boom right there. The Primordial Hydra will double from 9 to 18 plus 1 more. So that's going to be a 19/19, and now it has trample. And now we're dealing with a 19/19 trampling Hydra. Exava will get 4 and then 5. And then our Managorger Hydra over there, yeah, it goes from 10 to 21. And folks, that is how we close out a game with Juned counters. This is MTG Burgeoning, folks. This is the Kitchen Table series. You are watching deck tech number 18 of this series. And this is one of the most fun decks we've put out there so far. Go forth. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. Enjoy your day. Want to become a Pack Wars combatant? 4 easy steps. Step number 1. Click on the link below in the description or go to www.buymeacoffee.com/MTGBurgeoning. Step number 2. Select either membership or support. Membership will enroll you into Pack Wars for $5 each month. Support will cost $5 for 1 month. Step number 3, complete payment information. The name you use will appear on the site. Use your real name, use your YouTube handle, or use no name at all and be anonymous. Be sure to include your email address in the information. Step number 4, most importantly, prepare for war.